right, welcome back to the MyMarketer Show. My name is Danny Decker. I'm a co-founder here at MyMarketer. I'm your host for today. As always, the show is brought to you by MyMarketer.com, your source for world-class virtual marketing assistance. If you need marketing execution help to grow your business, visit MyMarketer.com to get started. Mention that you heard about us through the MyMarketer Show, and we will actually waive your startup fee. So my guest today failed again as an entrepreneur because he tried to run his business and his life on a bunch of BS. Then one day he had a wake-up call and discovered that running a business based on truth and even mistakes is more profitable. Now he's a successful entrepreneur who runs a $35 million company that he built from scratch at his kitchen table and only works in about 90 days per year. He's joining us today to share some of the revelations from his newest book, which releases this fall, which is entitled Truth, Lies, Mistakes, or Bullshit. Which one is driving your business? So welcome to the show, RJon Robins. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, great to have you here. All right, so what do you mean you ran your life and your business on a bunch of BS? What does that mean?
So, truth is reality. Reality is truth. Everything that's true is only true because it's real. Everything that's real is by definition true. I think everyone understands that intuitively, even if they've never stopped to think about it. A lie is when a person intentionally misrepresents their best understanding of what's real. Telling the truth is not the same thing as what is true. Telling the truth is when a person does their best to accurately describe their best understanding of reality. When I do my best to accurately describe my best understanding of reality, I am said to be telling the truth, which is not the same thing as what is real. It's just I'm doing my best to accurately describe what I believe to be real. Yes? Bullshit is when a person says something or makes a representation or makes plans based on not even knowing what's real. When you don't really know what's real, that's bullshit. When you make a marketing plan without taking the time to know what's real, that's a bullshit marketing plan. When you make a budget without taking the time to know what's real, that's a bullshit budget. When you make a business plan without understanding what's real, that's a bullshit business plan. When you make a business decision without taking the time to know what the facts are, without looking at the data, without looking at the financials, without really investigating, thinking through, analyzing, figuring it out, that's a bullshit business decision. Now, a mistake is when you do your very best to make your decisions and make representations based on what you believe to be real, and you turn out to be wrong. We're always wrong sometimes. Everyone's wrong sometimes, right? Truth, telling the truth and making mistakes are great and necessary ways to run a business. Lies tend to be toxic. That's a bad way to run a business. But what's even worse, and I know this is going to sound a little controversial, but what's even worse than telling lies is making decisions based on bullshit. Because the person who's making decisions based on bullshit, they don't know what's real. They're completely out of control.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And like for me, and you kind of just hinted at it there, like the bullshit quadrant, just call it that, is probably the most dangerous place to be. Because for one thing, your average small business owner doesn't necessarily even realize it, right? And we have, like, it shows up in the marketing space when we have a conversation with an employee or a client and it starts with, well, hey, that marketing campaign failed. Like, it didn't work. The campaign didn't work. And then so my natural question is, well, why not? And let's diagnose it, right? Like, was it because not enough people saw the ad? Was it enough people clicked on the ad?
Wait. Stop. Wait. First question is, how do we know?
Right.
How do we know it failed? Right? Because the client says that marketing campaign failed. What do you mean by failed? right? Did it fail to bring the right customer? It brought lots of prospects, but the wrong people. Or did it fail? It brought the right people, just not enough of them. Or did it fail? It brought too many of the right people and it crashed our production capacity, and now we had a waiting list of pissed off clients. Or did it fail because it brought in, a ton of new business and we weren't properly capitalized to take advantage of all of this manna from heaven? Or did it not really fail at all and the owner of the business is now just having a mindset meltdown because they're unprepared for that next level of success? Or did it fail because it shined a spotlight, pun intended, did it shine a spotlight on a deeper problem in the business that got exposed because of success and growth? What do you mean that it failed?
Yeah, no, I love that. And kind of the point I want to circle back to is just this idea that if you don't ask those questions, I mean, listen, I've worked with hundreds of business owners. 99% of the time, that campaign failed, so we're going to move on to something different, nobody presses that question further. And so everybody in the room just accepts the idea that, like, hey, that thing didn't work. And in my experience, and RJon, we wrote a book together on marketing. I know we share some similar beliefs around sort of the philosophy of marketing. Like, it rarely works the first time. Pretty much nothing. I have never launched a marketing campaign that was a home run the very first time we launched it. It takes mistakes.
I'm gonna call bullshit on that, right? Because if the purpose of the first iteration of the marketing campaign is to test something, and we were able to test that, and we were able to learn something from that, and we use that information to iterate to make the next one better, then the marketing campaign didn't fail. It taught us what it was supposed to teach us. The problem is most business owners, they don't really know what they're doing. And I don't mean that they don't know how to market. I mean, they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. Why are we running this campaign? Is the only reason we're running this campaign just to get new business today? Which is a valid reason. If that's the reason, then we design one kind of marketing campaign.
Yep.
Or is the purpose of this marketing campaign to set us up for success a year from now, and we're laying the foundations for what's going to be a marketing campaign a year from now, and right now we're testing things so that a year from now we can be crushing it in the marketplace? Or is the purpose of the marketing campaign to test a different price point? Or is the purpose of the marketing campaign to test a new market to see if we can tap into a new kind of customer? But most business owners, they work, unfortunately, with, I would say, people who don't really understand marketing. Unfortunately, there's no license to be called a marketing agency. I wish there was, right? Anyone who knows how to buy Google ads or knows how to, do some SEO. So anyone who knows how to push the buttons and buy the ads can call themselves a marketer and can run out and say, I've got a marketing agency. You take one course, you read a couple of books, and you call yourself a marketing agency. But a real marketer understands the art and the science and the strategy. And I don't mean the strategy of just getting new clients or customers today. I mean the strategy of setting up a consistent, predictable flow of business for years to come. And that sometimes requires doing things with a marketing campaign today that's designed to set us up for success the day after tomorrow.
All right. So one of the things that I really admire kind of about, at least my perception of how you built your business, how to manage back in the early days, is it wasn't you went and spent all this money on Google ads or Facebook ads. Like, you actually traveled the country getting butts in chairs speaking from stage and building your business that way. Is that accurate? And like, first off, am I correct about that? Because we've actually never talked about that. But I assume that's where your sort of initial growth came from.
When I first started my business, I had just lost my home to foreclosure. We were completely broke. The reason we were completely broke is because I was making business decisions based on bullshit. I was making bullshit business decisions, and I failed to put in processes. I failed to put in systems. I failed to put in procedures. Basically, I was Harry from the book, right? I was doing amazing work, but I had no business infrastructure to speak of. And I told myself a bunch of bullshit stories to justify and rationalize and make myself feel better about the predicament that I was in, to protect my ego and my self-esteem. And so when Allie, my wife, got sick, she got very sick, as you know. She's fully recovered now, but she was very ill for about 18 months. And at the end of that 18 months, we were broke. We lost everything. We lost our house to foreclosure and everything. So I had nothing. So all I had was, I got myself in front of audiences, and I would just take a long form sales letter, a long form copy sales letter, right? And I would get on stage and I would essentially perform it. And I would perform a headline, and I would perform a point of view, and I would perform a binary message, and I would perform knocking down all of the objections, and I would perform the call to action, and I would perform everything that you and I wrote about in the Automatic Marketing Machine book that we wrote, and that you would put in an old-fashioned sales letter. I would get on stage and I would perform it, and I would see how the audience would respond. And for 3 years, I was on the road more than I was home, and so I had the opportunity to A/B test the message for 3 years. And on Tuesday, I would typically speak on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No one wanted to book me for a speech on Mondays or Wednesdays or Fridays. So every Tuesday and every Thursday, I was on stage in front of a live audience, watching what they were reacting to, watching what worked. And at the end of the day, every Tuesday and Thursday, I would get the order forms and I'd see, did it work or did it not work? And I would get to the end of the talk, and the first person who would come up to talk to me, I would just have to punch them in the face and get them out of my way as quick as I could, because no matter what, the first person who jumped up to talk to me would never buy anything from me ever under any circumstances. They just never bought anything. I don't know why, but for some reason, someone who's never going to buy anything from me always feels compelled to jump up before anyone else and run up and tell me how much they love the speech, how much they love the talk, and how much everyone here needs to listen to what I'm saying. And then I say, great, will you buy something? And they say, no, get out of my way. I got no use for you, right? And then I get people who would write, this is the best speech ever on the comment cards. And I say, are you going to buy something? No. Well, then I got no use for you. And I'd have people who would write they hated things about the speech that really pissed them off. Are you going to buy something? Yes, I'm buying something. Good. Then it was successful, right? And I would just test and test and test. And I remember one time, I in the early days, I had a short haircut. I was clean shaven. I had a suit. I had a tie. And I went and did a speech, and the airline had lost my luggage. And so I had to do the speech. I didn't shave. I didn't wear a suit and tie. And I noticed the audience reacted really well to that. And so I tested the next time, let's see what happens if I don't wear a suit and tie again. And well, I mean, now look at me, right? But this was a matter of testing and evolution and testing to see what works. But you know what I never did? I never said, I wonder what would happen if I walked in naked. Let's test that. Because I knew that's not going to work, right? And the thing that frustrates me so much, just to circle back to my point before, is how many so-called marketers are willing to waste client money testing things that they ought to know better than to test.
All right. So I'm just going to ask the question this way. I think there are a lot of people out there that want to grow their business. There are a lot of people that are willing to spend money on ads to grow their business. There are not a lot of people that have the courage to get on a stage. And listen, I'll be transparent. I don't think I have this level of courage either. And truly approach it as
you've been on my stage. I put you on my stage in front of 500.
I'm not saying I'm afraid to be on stage. I'm saying what you just described was like this willingness to, get up on stage and not perform for people to like you, and actually not even care if they like you, but truly to measure the success of your message based on whether people bought. Even if they disliked it, hated it, said bad things about it, but they bought, you said it was successful. Where do you get that courage?
So first off, I do care whether people like me or not. It is not accurate that I don't care if people like me or not. I get so frustrated with all these coaches and consultants and all these people who get on stage in front of an audience. They're like, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. Only a moron or a fool or a sociopath doesn't care what other people think of them. Obviously, I want the audience to like me because it's more likely that they'll do business with me if they like me. I'm simply not willing to let what people think of me dictate my choices. You get the distinction?
Yeah.
Other people's opinion of me don't drive my decisions. But yeah, all things being equal, I'd rather people like me, of course.
Why not, though? Like, most people don't have the ability to get to that place you just described. Like, most people, quote, want to grow their business, but won't get on stage and travel the country and do what you did. And so what I'm asking you is, like, where did you get that courage?
Right. I understand the question. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that part, because I get so frustrated with people running around saying, I don't care what people, I don't care what people think. And it's like, of course you do. What kind of sociopath lunatic doesn't care what other people think of them? It's bad business not to care what other people think of you. That's stupid. I have a compulsive need to know what's real. I have a compulsive need to know what's true. Truth, lies, mistakes, or bullshit, what's driving your business. All things that are real are true. All things that are true are only true because they're real. I have a compulsive need to know what is real and what is true. My entire business exists to help our clients understand what's real about their business, what's really happening with your marketing, what's really happening with your intake, what's really happening with your sales, what's really happening with your staff's performance, what's really happening with the financial performance of your business, what's real. And as long as you are committed to know what's real, well, then nothing can get in your way, because you just need to know what's real. If it's real that the audience hates me because I have these points of view, and if it's real that these are actually my authentic points of view, well, then what's real is I'm in front of the wrong audience. The problem is when a person gets on stage and they express points of view and they express beliefs that they don't really hold. And then the audience doesn't like those points of view or beliefs. And so the person starts changing their story and changing their point of view and changing what they say. And it just becomes this, this game of whack-a-mole. But when you really take the time to think through your core values, and you take the time to really think through your real point of view and your real philosophy and what you really believe, then when the audience disapproves of that, the conclusion is you found the wrong audience. You got to find a different audience. Not there's something wrong with my point of view. And believe me, I've been in front of lots of audiences that didn't agree with my point of view and didn't agree with my core values. and didn't agree with my philosophy and my beliefs. And it feels pretty lonely and it feels pretty bad. But then eventually you find your way in front of the right audience and they embrace it. And you're like, why would I ever want to be in front of those other people again?
Yeah, love it.
So if you read my book, Truth, Lies, Mistakes, or Bullshit, some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. And if you hate it, there's nothing wrong with you. It just means we shouldn't do business together, and that's okay. If you love it, then we can be friends.
All right, so the book is Truth, Lies, Mistakes, or Bullshit. It's available for pre-order on barnesandnoble.com. So, RJon, one of the, I thought, really interesting conversations in the book happens towards the end. I don't remember which character brings this up, but the conversation was, it was about where profit really comes from in a business, and the idea that a lot of business owners don't understand what profit really means. Can you unpack that a little bit?
So profit is a byproduct. Profit is an effect. Profit is the residue. Profit is the natural byproduct. It's the natural effect of a voluntary exchange. Anytime two human beings make a voluntary exchange, they're both making a profit by making the exchange. Because I wouldn't give up these eyeglasses to get that book on your shelf if I didn't value that book on your shelf more than I value these eyeglasses. As much as I value these eyeglasses, as much as I like these eyeglasses, as much as I, love these eyeglasses, I wouldn't voluntarily exchange them for that book on your shelf if I didn't value the book on your shelf more than I value the eyeglasses, right? And conversely, you wouldn't voluntarily give me the book for the eyeglasses if you didn't value the eyeglasses more than you value the book. Make sense?
Yeah.
So when I give up something that I value this much to get something that I value this much more, my profit is the this much more. And when you value something when you give up something you value this much to get something else you value this much more, your profit is the this much more. The problem is that most people think of profit only in terms of money. But profit can be measured in terms of money. Profit can be measured in terms of time. Profit can be measured in terms of relationships. Profit can be measured in terms of opportunities, right? When I give up the opportunity, like right now, I'm sitting here, I happen to be in Orlando, and my family is next door, and we're going to go out and do some fun stuff later. But right now, I accepted the invitation to be on this podcast with you because it was the only time that fit into everyone's schedule. So while I'm sacrificing the opportunity to go out and do some fun things with my family for this hour that I'm with you, I'm actually making a profit because I believe, I might be wrong, I might be mistaken, but I believe that this will lead to a better future for me and a better future for my family, this appearance on your podcast. And you are taking the time to be here interviewing me on your podcast, and your audience is investing the time to listen to us on this podcast because we believe that we're getting something of more value than what we're giving up by taking advantage of this opportunity to be together. So we're all making a profit. That's what profit really is. And when you understand what profit really is, it becomes very clear all of the opportunities to make a business more profitable, financially more profitable, personally more profitable, and professionally more profitable too.
I love that. And, one of the areas where I think that shows up in small businesses is, I don't know if you see this, you guys work a lot with law firms, but, our audience is small business owners kind of all over the map here. A lot of early stage entrepreneurs, business owners underprice themselves. And it's almost like because they are good at something, right? So me in my early days, I was a good copywriter and it felt easy to me. And I couldn't actually conceptualize that work was worth as much as it is to somebody else who maybe has the eyeglasses that they want to exchange for that. Because in my mind, this is easy, and how could I possibly justify charging, $300, $400, $500 an hour, when in reality, there are people willing to make that exchange. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs underpricing and undervaluing themselves because of that.
What you're describing is the doctrine of sacrifice, which is also discussed in the book, Truth, Lies, Mistakes, or Bullshit, What's Driving Your Business. And the doctrine of sacrifice teaches us that we should take pride in how much we suffer. And we should take pride in how much we sacrifice. And we should take pride in how much we endure. And that we should somehow apologize for making a profit because of the things that we do. And so the conclusion that naturally flows from a person who embraces the doctrine of sacrifice is I can only make a profit if it's hard. And if it's not hard, then I shouldn't make a profit because part of what they're getting from the exchange is the gratification of knowing they suffered to get it. But you know what? If money and profit flowed to hard work, right, then the bricklayers would all be rich, right? And everyone who we use our mind to create value, we would all be broke. But in reality, money flows to value. Money and profit flows to people who solve problems for other people. And when I can solve a small problem for you, it's of a little value to you, and you'll give me a little bit for solving a small problem. If I can solve a big problem for you, you'll give me more money because it solves a bigger problem for you. If I can solve the biggest problem you have in your life, you'll pay me more because it's worth more to you, right? It's like when you're on the operating table. Do you want the surgeon to tell you how hard the surgery is going to be? Do you want to know that the surgery is going to be 10 hours long? Or do you want the surgeon to say, I got this. I've done this a million times. I know exactly how to do it. My team is well trained. I've got good systems in place. I've got I've invested in the best equipment. I've invested in the best training for my staff. My staff is well rested. We're going to be in and out of there in 5 minutes. We got this. This is easy for us. Don't you worry about it. We're going to save your life. You'll be just fine. Or do you want the surgeon to tell you how grueling and excruciating and difficult it's going to be? And oh, by the way, I'm also doing this on my wedding anniversary, and my wife's pissed off at me for doing the surgery on you on the wedding anniversary. You don't care about those things. You only care about saving your life. And if it's easier for the surgeon, so much the better.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so RJon, at MyMarketer, we source and we place marketing assistance on small businesses, right? So we help small businesses add marketing help. And so one of the conversations we often have with earlier stage businesses is just like, when is the right time to bring on marketing help? Do you have any advice for small business owner that's thinking about bringing on marketing help, and whether they can afford it, whether they can't afford it, when they should do it?
I might say something that you're not going to want your audience to hear, but this is my answer. I don't think you should hire a marketing assistant until you yourself understand the fundamentals of marketing. Because otherwise, you're not going to know if the person you're interviewing is actually qualified and knows what they're talking about. You're not going to be able to spot the mistakes that they're making. And if they are successful, they will wind up holding you hostage. And so at the risk of plugging one of our other books, that's really why we wrote The Automatic Marketing Machine, because we were so disgusted by the Automatic Marketing Machine agency has a waiting list. There's no pitch here. There's no offer to hire the Automatic Marketing Machine. agency, it's got no space for more customers right now. We wrote the book to try to educate would-be buyers of marketing agency services so that you could be an informed, educated consumer of marketing. You know, the things I mentioned earlier, like you need to understand what a headline is, a good headline or a bad headline. Otherwise, your marketing assistant is going to put out a crappy headline and you won't know the difference. You need to know what a call to action is, a good call to action, a bad call to action. Otherwise, your marketing assistant is going to, put out a call to action that doesn't make any sense, and you won't know that it's not worth testing. I'm not saying you have to know how to push all the buttons and buy all the ads, but you ought to be able to recognize good work product versus crappy work product, even if AI produces it. AI produces some of the best marketing I've ever seen. AI also produces some of the crappiest marketing I've ever seen. And you, I think, should educate yourself to be able to recognize good from crap before you delegate it to another person. But once you can recognize a good ad from a bad ad, a good landing page from a bad landing page, a good follow-up sequence from a bad follow-up sequence, a good call to action from a bad call to action. Once you can kind of recognize that, then yeah, by all means, hire a marketing assistant. The second you can recognize good from bad, now you can just leverage yourself by letting them do the heavy lifting to implement good, and you'll protect yourself from letting them implement bad.
Love it. All right, I have one final question for you, RJon, but before we go there, for folks that are being introduced to you for the first time, how do you want people to connect with you? Obviously, I want them to go buy the book, Truth, Lies, Mistakes, or Bullshit, but where can people find you and kind of follow along your journey?
I have a couple of podcasts of my own. I appear on lots of other people's podcasts. I'm very blessed that my core business, how to manage a small law firm right now, we've had a waiting list for the better part of 3 years. We literally, at any given time, will have 50, 75, 100 law firms sitting on our waiting list in a place that we call the waiting room. And the waiting room is just a place where people can wait and get free coaching, free resources. They even can come to free live events while they're on the waiting list, waiting for a spot to open up in our membership. You go to our website. We have resource librarians. We give away free resources to hundreds of law firm owners every year. Even if you're never going to become a member of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, we'll share marketing resources with you for free, sales resources with you for free, how to hire, train, manage staff resources with you for free, financial controls resources for free, all kinds of. I mean, we just have so much content that we're happy to share it for free because we're not in the information business. We're in the help you get it done C-suite business. And if you own a business that's not a law firm, if you just erase law firm and replace it with whatever business you have, probably there's a 98.75% chance that 98.75% of it will be very, very, very applicable to your business too.
Love it. All right. We will link to that from the show notes. So last question for you, RJon. Like, we've spent a lot of time together. We've hung out in Miami. You have a custom license plate that says Decide on the back of your car. Why that?
The decision comes first. You have to decide what kind of life you want and then go make it happen.
Love it. RJon, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciated it. It was great chatting. Go enjoy Orlando.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the MyMarketer Show. Hope this episode was helpful. Stay tuned for more great content in the future. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, if you would like to add a world-class virtual marketing assistant to your team, you can get started at mymarketer.com. Mention the MyMarketer Show and we will waive the startup fee. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.